5 seconds. That's all it takes. The moment your eyes meet someone else's, not too long, not too quick, something shifts. Something that doesn't need words to exist. And yet, most people have no idea what they're doing when they look at another person. They glance, they dart away, they stare at the floor, they have no idea they're leaving power sitting on the table. The 5-second rule isn't a trick you read about in a dating article and forget by Tuesday. It's something far older than that, wired into us at a level that predates language, predates manners, predates everything we've built on top of our animal selves. Before you open your mouth in a room full of strangers, your presence is already being read, calculated, decided on. And what people register first, before your clothes, before your posture, before the words you've rehearsed, is where your eyes go. There's a contradiction in all of this, and I think most people feel it even if they've never named it. We want to be seen, deeply, desperately. We want someone to look at us and actually register that we're there. And at the same time, we're terrified of it. Eye contact is exposure. It's the one moment in a social interaction where you can't entirely hide, and some part of your nervous system knows that. Holding someone's gaze for 5 full seconds is an act of controlled vulnerability. You're letting them in, while simultaneously refusing to look away. That's not weakness, that's a very specific kind of power. And the psychological weight behind those 5 seconds is real. When you hold someone's gaze, you're making a quiet statement. I see you, and I'm not afraid of what you'll see when you look back. It reads as trust, even before trust has been earned. It reads as presence, the kind of presence most people spend years trying to manufacture through status or money or the right words. And here it is, available in 5 seconds for free, if you're willing to stop flinching. The evolutionary roots of this go deep. Long before we had the vocabulary for sincerity, for confidence, for desire, we had eye contact. It's how we determined whether to approach or retreat, whether we were being honored or dismissed, whether the person in front of us was someone worth knowing. The research on this is consistent and frankly unsurprising once you sit with it. We are drawn to people who can hold direct, non-threatening eye contact, not the stare of someone trying to intimidate. The gaze of someone who is simply, completely, unafraid to be present. What makes the 5-second mark specifically interesting is its precision. Under 3 seconds and you've barely registered. You're forgettable. You're everyone else in the room who looked away the moment things got slightly real. But push past 7, 8 seconds without releasing, you've crossed a line. Suddenly you're intense, possibly unhinged, definitely uncomfortable to be around. 5 seconds is the sweet spot. Long enough to land, short enough to leave something unresolved. And that unresolved feeling, that's intentional. That's the point. Nietzsche, who had strong opinions about power and wasn't shy about any of them, would have understood the mechanics of this immediately. His idea of the will to power wasn't just about brute force or dominance in the obvious sense. It was about the constant, subtle negotiation happening in every human exchange. Who leads, who follows, who controls the temperature of the room. And a 5-second gaze, held with calm intention, is a quiet seizure of that control. Not aggressive. Not performative. Just certain. The certainty itself is what does the work. But here's where Sartre steps in and complicates things, as Sartre tends to do. If every interaction is a power game, where does authentic connection live? Is eye contact just a dominance display with better PR? Maybe. Or maybe the answer is that power and authenticity aren't opposites. Maybe genuine connection requires that edge of tension, that awareness of being truly seen by another consciousness. Sartre wrote about the experience of being looked at as fundamentally destabilizing. The moment where you become suddenly uncomfortably aware of yourself through someone else's perception. What the 5-second rule does is take that destabilization and lean into it deliberately. You're not a victim of the gaze. You're the one creating it. This is where the seduction element enters, and I mean seduction in the broadest sense, not just romantic. The seduction of attention. The seduction of making someone feel, for 5 seconds, like they are the only thing worth looking at. When you hold someone's gaze with intention, their brain begins working immediately. What does this person want? What are they thinking? What aren't they saying? You've triggered their curiosity without offering resolution. And humans, pattern-seeking, story-hungry creatures that we are, cannot leave that alone. They will think about you later. Possibly for much longer than either of you expected. That's the mystery architecture of the gaze. You're not being secretive. You're not playing games exactly. You're simply choosing not to explain yourself, and that restraint becomes magnetic. In a world that over-explains everything constantly, loudly, across every possible platform, silence communicates. A look that says something without specifying what becomes remarkable. The brain fills in the gap, and it almost always fills it in your favor. The deeper paradox is this. The moment of eye contact simultaneously establishes your dominance and your vulnerability. By not looking away, you're claiming confidence, presence, the unspoken assertion that you have nothing to hide. But by looking, by really looking, you're also allowing access. You're saying, look back, see me. And strangely, profoundly, it's that offer, the willingness to be seen, that makes the whole exchange so potent. The person who can do both at once, hold the gaze and remain open within it, is almost impossible to ignore. When Heidegger explored what it means to be truly witnessed by another person, he was touching on something we feel before we can articulate it. To be seen, properly, fully, without the other person immediately looking at their phone or past your shoulder at something more interesting, is to be confirmed as real, as present, as worthy of attention. The 5-second gaze does this efficiently, almost chemically. Studies show that sustained eye contact triggers the release of oxytocin, the same hormone involved in trust, in bonding, in the particular warmth you feel around people you genuinely love. You can initiate that neurological process with a look. 5 seconds, no words necessary. But this is where skill matters more than technique, because misused, all of this becomes something else entirely. Too much eye contact doesn't read as confident. It reads as threatening. There's a hardwired alarm in the human brain that activates when someone holds your gaze past the point of comfort, something ancient that registers it as aggression, as challenge, as predatory. The 5-second rule exists precisely because it respects that threshold. It plays right up to the edge of intensity and stops there. The moment you decide to ignore that boundary, to hold the stare because you think it makes you seem more powerful, you've lost the room. And probably the person. Too little eye contact is its own problem. The perpetual glancer. The person who makes brief contact looks at the wall, looks at the floor, looks anywhere but directly at you. It reads as disinterest at best, anxiety at worst. Either way, it creates distance. Connection requires a certain amount of nerve, and the people who look away too quickly signal, however unintentionally, that they don't quite have it. Reading the other person is non-negotiable in all of this. The 5-second gaze only works as an exchange. If the person you're looking at begins to shift, to contract, to show the small physical signs of discomfort, the micro glances away, the slight lean back, the subtle stiffening, you have to register that and adjust. Emotional intelligence here isn't optional. It's the whole thing. The technique without the awareness is just staring at someone who didn't ask for it. Timing matters enormously too. The same gaze that creates electricity in the right moment feels forced and strange in the wrong one. During an awkward silence, at the precise moment someone's attention is elsewhere. These aren't moments to deploy intention. They're moments to wait. The 5-second rule is most effective when it fits naturally into the flow of an interaction, when it lands during eye contact that was already happening and simply extends it, purposefully, past the point where most people would flinch. Cultural context also has to live in the back of your mind. In many Western contexts, direct eye contact is a marker of respect, interest, confidence. In others, parts of East Asia, certain indigenous cultures, specific hierarchical structures, prolonged eye contact reads as confrontational or disrespectful. The tool doesn't exist in a vacuum. Using it well requires knowing your context. And finally, this might be the most important thing. Confidence in eye contact can't be performed. It has to come from somewhere real. If you're anxious, the gaze becomes rigid, glassy, slightly off, in a way people register without knowing why. The kind of eye contact that actually moves people comes from someone who is genuinely, quietly comfortable in their own presence. That's not something you fake, it's something you build. But it builds faster than most people expect, and practice is the only way through. The 5-second rule at its core isn't really about eyes. It's about the willingness to show up fully in the space between you and another person. To resist the reflexive retreat. To occupy your own presence without apology. The eyes are just the vehicle. The actual thing being communicated is that you are here, you are real, and you are not afraid of being known. In a world that rewards noise and punishes stillness, 5 seconds of genuine eye contact is almost radical. It cuts through everything. It asks nothing except that you both briefly stop pretending you aren't there. That's not a small thing. That's everything. Here's a long, rich conclusion to close the script. And so we come back to those 5 seconds. Just 5 seconds. And yet by now you understand that there's nothing just about them. What we've been talking about this whole time isn't really a rule. Rules are rigid. Rules are things you follow on a checklist and forget. What the 5-second gaze actually is, when you strip away all the psychology and the philosophy and the research, is a choice. A daily, moment-to-moment choice to show up in your own life with enough presence to actually look at the people in front of you. To stop performing. To stop scanning. To stop using your eyes as a camera that captures surfaces and start using them as the thing they actually are. A direct line between you and another human being. We live in an era that has made eye contact almost radical. Think about that. We walk through cities surrounded by thousands of people and make genuine eye contact with almost none of them. We sit across from people we love at dinner tables and check our phones. We communicate through screens and emojis and voice notes, layering distance upon distance between ourselves and the terrifying, beautiful reality of being truly witnessed. And somewhere in all that noise, we've convinced ourselves that this is fine, that this is just how things are now. But the loneliness statistics tell a different story. The anxiety numbers tell a different story. The quiet, creeping sense that something is missing, that tells a different story too. Eye contact is one of the oldest things we have. It predates every technology, every ideology, every empire that ever rose and fell. Two people looking at each other, really looking, is one of the most ancient human acts in existence, and we are starving for it. The 5-second rule in this light is almost an act of resistance. It's a refusal to participate in the collective flinching that has become our default mode of interaction. It's a decision to be present, not just physically in the room, but emotionally available, psychologically awake, willing to be registered and to register in return. That kind of presence is increasingly rare. And rare things, as you know, carry weight. But I want to be honest with you about something. Mastering this, really mastering it, not just trying it once at a party and feeling awkward, takes time. It takes a confrontation with yourself before it can become natural with others. Because the reason most people avoid sustained eye contact isn't really about the other person. It's about what they might see reflected back. Eye contact is a mirror as much as it is a window. When you stop looking away, you also stop running from yourself. And that's where the real work begins. The people who move through the world with genuine magnetic presence, the ones you remember long after they've left the room, the ones who make you feel inexplicably like you matter, they aren't doing something supernatural. They're doing something almost embarrassingly simple. They look at you, they stay. They don't apologize for their attention, and they don't withhold it either. They've made peace with the discomfort of being seen, and so their gaze carries no desperation, no performance, no agenda beyond genuine contact. That's what you feel when someone like that looks at you. You feel chosen, not because they're manipulating you, but because presence, real presence, is so uncommon that it feels like a gift when you encounter it. That is what you're building when you practice this. Not a technique, not a seduction strategy, a way of being. A version of yourself that is grounded enough to hold still, confident enough to hold the gaze, and open enough to let something real pass through it. Think about the relationships in your life that have meant the most. The conversations that changed something in you, the moments you still carry. I'd be willing to bet that eye contact was woven through all of them. Not as a tool being deployed, but as a natural expression of the fact that both people were completely unguardedly there. That's what intimacy actually is at its foundation. Not candlelight and perfect words. Presence. The willingness to be in the same moment as another person and not escape it. Nietzsche gave us the will to power. Sartre gave us the terror and the gift of being seen. Heidegger gave us the concept of being truly, authentically present in the world. And what's remarkable is that all three of them, through wildly different philosophical paths, kept arriving at the same uncomfortable truth. We cannot fully exist in isolation. We need the witness of another consciousness to confirm our own reality. We need to be looked at, not evaluated, not judged, but seen, in order to feel that we are real, that we are here, that we matter. 5 seconds of eye contact can do that. Not perfectly, not permanently, but enough. Enough to create a flicker of recognition between two people. Enough to signal without a single word, I see you. I'm not afraid of you. I'm not running from this moment. And in that flicker, something is born. Sometimes it's attraction. Sometimes it's trust. Sometimes it's just the quiet comfort of having been genuinely acknowledged by another human being in a world that often moves too fast to notice you at all. So practice this. Not obsessively, not mechanically, but consciously. The next time you're in a conversation and you feel the pull to glance away, stay a half second longer than feels comfortable. Not to dominate, not to seduce, just to see what happens when you stop retreating. The next time someone holds your gaze longer than expected, resist the reflex to break it first. Sit in the slight discomfort of being seen and notice, actually notice, what it feels like. Notice what it does to the conversation. Notice what it does to the other person. Notice what it does to you. Because the truth is, you already know how powerful this is. You've felt it. You've felt the difference between someone who looks through you and someone who actually looks at you. You know the particular quality of attention that makes you feel like the most interesting person in the room. And you know how rarely you encounter it. You've been starved of it, probably, without ever naming the hunger.